One-on-one. Okay, that's like two-thirds of the room there, maybe. Okay? Yeah, well, communication is not as easy as we think it is. We think that if we speak something out into the ether, then that's it. They're going to understand what it is that we've been trying to say. Unfortunately, it does not work that way. So, let's dive right on into it. There's going to be a certain amount of audience participation here, okay? Challenges to a better understanding. What are some of the worst, okay? If it's going. There we go. One-on-one. What are some challenges to one-on-one or true interpersonal communication that we have? So we're going to go negative first before we get to the positive things. What ideas do you have out there? What's a challenge speaking someone one-on-one?
Body language.
Body language. Okay. What's tough about body language exactly? Okay.
This.
Hand movements. What does this mean? Yeah. Okay. What else is challenging? What was that? Okay. Well, that's an issue too. All right. What else is a challenge? One-on-one with an individual. Your tone? Oh my God, if I hear tone one more time this week, because everybody, it's the tone. Well, you're exactly right. It is the tone. What do you mean by that?
Well, for me, my voice is deep and loud.
Okay.
And some may take me as being too direct.
Oh.
Because I'm just got a deeper voice for a woman and I can be too direct.
Okay. Well, you bring that up, and there's a couple of different aspects there. There is the actual physical tone, but then there's tone of the words. How do words have a tone? And we'll get into that when we talk about email here in just a little bit. All right, one other challenge as far as communicating one-on-one. Let me go over here. Yes, sir.
If you're on the phone, it's a lot harder to see their body expressions and stuff.
Okay.
And it's not as direct. You can't really get across the same way as you would in person.
There's 3 channels to communication. It's called the 3 V's, if you will. Visual, vocal, and verbal. Visual, vocal, and verbal. So, it's the words we say. It's how we say them. And it's what we look like when we use those words. And when you're on the phone, you drop the visual. So you've gone from 3 down to 2. When you get to email, you only have 1 channel of communication. And we're going to get into that here in just a little bit. Thank you. All right, well, let's go another way. What about email? Let's go into email. What's a challenge in email? Tone. Okay, I kind of gave you that one. All right.
Actually responding.
Pardon?
Responding.
Responding? How so? Responding in time or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just responding in general. I mean, I sent you an email. It's
Okay.
been a day, 2 and 3, you did not respond.
Okay. Okay. Yes, sir.
Certain words can have like a different connotation to one person than somebody else.
Oh, that's so right. Yes. I keep getting affect and effect mixed up all the time. And that's not good for a magician. But, yeah, you're exactly right. And, in fact, I could say, what's the connotation of that? And you're like, connotate what? So, yeah, people do interpret the words that we use possibly different. What was that, ma'am? Oh, okay. Thank you. So, all right, email. What else? We talked about the tone, the words.
Our colloquialisms are words that we say.
Oh, my goodness.
That we say
Yeah.
that maybe somebody outside of our culture doesn't understand.
I was directly on that issue. I was teaching a class in Massachusetts about 3 years ago. Wonderful people. But we were discussing an issue, and I think it was on management. And I said, you don't want to be in a discussion with somebody and then they just kind of pull you down a rabbit hole, a rabbit trail. And they're like, huh? What do you mean? I said, you don't want to be pulled down a rabbit trail. You mean like Alice in Wonderland, a rabbit hole? I said, no, a rabbit trail. Like, you got a coon dog, he's leading you down one trail, and then he goes down another trail. Stone silence, totally did not understand what I was saying. So finally I just said, well, I guess that dog won't hunt. So, yes, colloquialisms. In the South, we use a lot of those, not necessarily everywhere else. Good point. What about in a small group? Maybe in a classroom, maybe in a Sunday school. Yes, sir.
People talking over each other.
People talking over one another, no order. Ugh. Yeah, that's tough. What else? Small group, a challenge to good communication in a small group. Yes, ma'am.
There's always one leader.
There's what?
There's always taking control. There's always one leader taking control.
There's one leader taking control, and if it's the teacher or facilitator or the pastor or the boss, yeah, that's okay. Otherwise, why are you talking so much? Yeah. You have to share in the communication and try to get everyone involved. And that's something that a good facilitator will try to do. All right, one last thing. What about small group? Anything else a challenge to communication?
You can't communicate with everybody in that small group in a certain amount of time. For networking, it's hard to actually communicate with everybody. You pick a couple people and you communicate with them.
Yeah, you're right. And if we were to break out into small groups in here, because we've got about 50, 60 people, then we would have to go down to groups of 4 or 5. Maybe we could share in a way that we could pick up and glean ideas from one another. We're not going to do that here today. But, yeah, you're exactly right. Okay, well, let's talk about characteristics of a good communicator. So I talked about some challenges. I discussed what are some negatives of communication. Let's just say, in general, characteristics of a good communicator. You, sir.
Going back to the last slide, I would say one of the bigger challenges now with face-to-face communication
Yeah.
is masks, because you can't really see people's facial expressions.
Yep.
So you just have to rely on their tone of voice.
I hope you're smiling. Yeah, you're exactly right. So a good communicator, a good communicator would have good facial expressions. Yes, ma'am.
Eye contact.
Eye contact. Let's talk about that. What's important about eye contact?
Not too much.
Not.
It shows that
I mean,
you're
not
actually
staring.
paying attention.
Oh, I love this. The two of you just kind of made a salient point. I wasn't going to get into this, but yeah, the guy said too much, and the lady said essentially not enough. And there is a distinct characteristic, typically, not universally, not with everyone, but there is a distinct characteristic difference between men and women. Now, when I say that, I don't mean all men all the time and never women and vice versa. But yes, there's something about eye contact. And so I have learned through the years that if I want to be more engaging with the typical woman, I want to make good eye contact. Now, if for some reason I'm talking to her and she starts to take a little step back or she kind of drops her gaze a little bit, then she's telling me she has a different communication style. And so I'll drop my gaze and bring it back because I don't want to creep her out or anything. But yes, when we were young, little boys on the playground, we would have these staring contests. And little girls had staring contests too. I think y'all grew out of it. Men did not. And so really, that's a thing. And we don't want to make contact with the gentleman too long. We want to be forthright because we don't want to come across as suspicious, but we don't want to make eye contact with men typically too long because we don't want to be seen as a threat or as an aggressor. So that's really important. So I let the men know that if you're speaking to a lady, she, me, you got to pick up her own individual communication patterns. She may prefer that you give her a good steady gaze because she thinks that you're actually, and you're nodding your head, that you're actually listening, all right? But ladies, please understand, if a man is talking to you and he looks out the window and he comes back and he looks out the door and he comes back, the main thing is, does he come back? So especially the average man is taller than the average woman, we don't want to be seen as a bully or as an aggressor. And that's why we do that, just FYI. So I think I just solved about 3 or 4 marriages in here today, just now, just with that, okay? All right. So what else? Good characteristics of a good communicator. Let me get 1 or 2 more.
Good listener. Listening.
Oh, well, there you go. Jinx. Okay, so neither one of you can say anything for the rest of it. Yeah, a good listener. A good listener. Let's go a little deeper with that. How would you define a good listener?
I would just be quiet until you finish all your point, not interrupting you in the middle of a conversation, or while you're talking to me, I'll be interrupting you with questions. I would
Yes.
just sit quiet until you finish, and then I would ask you or mention any comments.
Yes, I appreciate that. Obviously, I love my mother to death. Obviously. But if I have to tell her something, I'm like, Mom, go get a pen and paper. Because she interrupts me because she's afraid she's going to forget something. So I say, write it down. I gotta tell you all this stuff. And I don't want to have to start all over again. And there was another lady over who said listening over here. Oh, you did. And let's go a little deeper. What is good listening?
For me, even though you're listening, you need to be able to make sure that you understand what the person is saying.
Okay.
Because just replying just because that doesn't make you a good listener. But if
Right.
you can repeat back and say, I heard you say, and then give you an explanation or what you're referencing to me, that's what defines that you actually not heard me, but listened to me.
Yes. Excellent. I couldn't have said that any better. But yes, if I can actually take your thought, internalize it, and put it out in my own words and still have the same meaning, then that means I truly was listening. All right? Really good. Yes, sir.
So for me, as a good communicator, for example, if you are in the middle of a class, you just do not focus with someone. Just spread your words, spread your eye contacts with everybody in the room. Use a clear language, especially if you have diversity in the room. Do not use slang language,
Right.
with the majority do. So for example, it's different culture. The joke you say, maybe they laugh about it. I don't understand.
Okay.
The joke I have, I laugh at it. You don't understand it. So we need to take care about
Right.
this stuff. What else? They mentioned eye contact, which is great. The tone is gonna be like in the middle. Of course, you don't have to be aggressive, but if it's like motivational or motivative, speaker, of course, you're gonna go like loud sometimes. It depends on what you say or what about the subject is.
If you're going to be presenting, absolutely, you need to work the room, so to speak, and you need to have vocal variety. Absolutely. One last thing before we move on. What's another characteristic of a good communicator?
Let's still going on.
Oh, okay. Well, due to time, we got to go on, but hold that thought. I'm sure we'll probably come back to it here in a little bit. So here we go. Some characteristics of a good communicator. And so someone who pays attention, and yet someone who asks questions, someone who's comfortable, yet someone who is confident. Knows when to speak, and here's the big one. Knows when to shut up, right? And sometimes and by we I mean Blaine Little, have to remind myself, okay, I need to shut up now. Good listeners, but yet good storytellers, specific, but keep it simple. Get to the point, but don't be abrupt or rude. Empathetic, and think before you speak. And I'm not going to go one way or the other in terms of who I like or anything. But what I have seen is that empathy and thinking over the past couple of months, one side seems to really emote a lot and not necessarily think. The other side seems to think and not yet be considerate. Okay? I'm going to let you assign which side that is. But in order to make a good decision and to appeal to people, you have to be empathetic, understand their feelings, and understand the data. Be flexible in your style. Use good sense of humor. Quick replies. Take notes. So what's at the heart of a good communicator? And I think it's cut off on this because the slide. But what's at the heart of a good communicator is simply how they make us feel. How they make us feel. Do we feel that they're respecting our time and our intellect by being a good communicator? All right, very important. You have to communicate with the client in their medium. Now, and you may not have printed it off, but you should. Oh, good. Y'all did get the handout. So if you didn't print print off your handout, then that's in your email. A lot of this will be reiterated. But you have to communicate with the client in their medium. In their medium. What I have found is that generations tend to favor the medium of communication with which they grew up. So when they were a teenager or in their early 20s, I love email. Email came out late 70s, but it really hit the scene in the mid to late 80s. And I love email because you can do so much with it. Texting is of the devil. Now, I've actually gotten a little bit better with my texting because I have kids. But millennials love texting. Well, what are the baby boomers like? Calling. They like to talk on the phone. Okay? Does anybody's parents still have a voicemail machine? Anybody? Mine do. Okay? And they come in and they see that little red blinking light and they get all excited. Oh my God. I got a message. So they love that. All right? So you have to talk to them on their communication medium. You cannot expect them to kind of adapt to you. All right? And that kind of reiterates the point right there. So, questions, comments, concerns over this or anything we've discussed so far? We're about halfway through. Okay. Let's move on.